Remove your hands from that table immediately. This isn't a street corner, and your very presence is an insult to the generations of elegance this room represents. The voice was like cold glass, sharp and cutting. Sarah Whitmore, the iron matriarch of the city's oldest shipping dynasty, didn't just deliver an insult, she delivered a declaration of war. As Wilson stood in the center of the classic ballroom, his hands resting naturally in the pockets of his heavyweight black hoodie, Sarah lunged forward. With a violent, calculated shove, she slammed her palms into Wilson's chest, forcing him back against a mahogany pillar directly beneath the shimmering light of a massive crystal chandelier. The ballroom, a sea of mustard yellow blazers, sapphire blue silk wraps, and deep emerald green trench coats, fell into a dead, suffocating silence. The elite froze, their champagne glasses halfway to their lips, as they watched the most powerful woman in the room physically assault a man half her age. "I told the organizers that the security protocols were failing," Sarah hissed, her face inches from Wilson's. Her skin was pulled tight over her cheekbones, adorned with diamonds that cost more than most city blocks. "I've spent 50 years protecting a legacy where men wear tailcoats and respect their betters. You're a loiterer, a nobody, and you're polluting the atmosphere for my actual investors." Around them, the social jury didn't look away. A woman in a sapphire blue silk wrap let out a sharp, mocking titter, while a man in an emerald green trench coat adjusted his cufflinks, nodding in approval as Sarah continued to pin Wilson against the wood. Sarah's fingers bunched the fabric of the hoodie, her eyes flashing with a predatory gleam. "Do you even know where you are? This is the Aurelian estate. My great-grandfather laid the first stone. My blood is in the mortar. And I am the one who decides who is worthy of standing on this floor." Wilson didn't flinch. He didn't raise a hand to stop her. His eyes were like polished obsidian, calm, deep, and terrifyingly still. He looked at the digital clock embedded in the mahogany wall. 3:58 p.m. Right now, the billionaire thinks she's won. She's calling security and she's laughing. But what you're about to see at the 7-minute mark isn't just a firing, it's a total asset seizure. You do not want to miss the moment the sirens arrive, because they aren't there for the man in the hoodie. Sarah pulled a slim, gold-plated radio from her clutch. "Security? I have a vagrant in the ballroom. He's aggressive and he's touched the artifacts. I want him in zip ties and dragged through the front lawn for the guests to see. Now." She turned back to Wilson, a smug, cruel smile appearing on her face. "You see that? That's power. That's legacy. Something a diversity higher, like you will never understand. You're just a ghost in a sweatshirt, and today, I'm exorcising you from my world." Wilson finally spoke. His voice wasn't a shout, it was a surgical whisper that carried a weight that made the nearby guests stop breathing. 50 years of legacy, Sarah? It's a pity. You spent all that time building walls, but you forgot to check who owns the ground they're standing on. Wilson reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a slim, black encrypted tablet. The screen glowed, casting a cool blue light onto his face, contrasting with the warm amber glow of the crystal chandelier. He tapped a single icon, Execute Clause 8.3. Total Parent Company Absorption. "You talk about your great-grandfather's stones," Wilson said, his thumb hovering over the final, confirm button. "But as of 2 p.m. this afternoon, your great-grandfather's stones, your father's charter, and the very air you're breathing, they all transitioned into a new portfolio." He looked Sarah dead in the eye. "My portfolio." The hum of the crystal chandelier seemed to grow louder, a high-pitched electric frequency that mirrored the rising blood pressure in Sarah Whitmore's temples. She stared at her smartphone, the screen reflecting a jagged red line across her digital portfolio. Her hands, usually steady with the weight of 50 years of authority, began to tremble, making the diamonds on her fingers clatter against the glass. "This is a glitch," Sarah barked, though her voice lacked its usual iron. "A server error. Hack. You think a few lines of code and a black hoodie can erase a century of Whitmore steel? I am the foundation of this city. My name is on the hospitals, the libraries, and the very street you walked on to get here." Around the room, the social jury began to shift with the brutal speed of a shark tank. The woman in the sapphire blue silk wrap took a tentative, graceful step back, her mocking smile replaced by a look of sharp, calculated concern. The man in the emerald green trench coat suddenly found the bubbles in his champagne glass fascinating, avoiding eye contact with the woman he had been nodding along with only moments ago. The elite could smell the scent of a falling empire, and they were already looking for the lifeboats. "It wasn't just code, Sarah," Wilson said, his voice cold and resonant, echoing off the mahogany pillars. "It was your own greed. You leveraged the Whitmore legacy to fund an expansion in the East that didn't exist. You were so busy looking at the name on the door that you forgot to check who was holding the mortgage. I didn't just buy your debt, I bought your pride. Every brick in this estate, every bottle in that cellar, even the chair you're about to lose, they belong to the Wilson Capital Group now. Sarah lunged again, reaching for the black tablet in Wilson's hand, her face contorted in a mask of desperation. But her movements were heavy, burdened by the sudden, crushing realization of her total defeat. Wilson didn't even have to move. As if on a pre-programmed cue, the heavy oak doors of the ballroom swung open. The low, haunting wail of sirens finally cut through the orchestral music, their blue and red lights dancing frantically against the crystal chandelier and the mahogany walls. 4 men in sharp, charcoal gray suits, federal marshals, marched into the center of the gala. They didn't head for the man on suit. They walked straight to Sarah. "Ms. Whitmore," the lead officer announced, his voice like a gavel. "We are here to oversee the immediate asset seizure of the Aurelian estate and all associated holdings. You have exactly 3 minutes to vacate the premises with your personal effects. Everything else is now property of the new deed holder." The silence that followed was absolute. Sarah looked around the room, her eyes searching for a single ally, but she found only stone-cold indifference. The friends she had hosted for decades watched her like a stranger. "You're a guest in my house now, Sarah," Wilson said, stepping out from the shadow of the pillar and adjusting the sleeves of his hoodie. He didn't gloat. He didn't shout. He simply looked up at the chandelier with the calm gaze of a man who had already moved on to his next acquisition. "And I don't like the atmosphere. Security, please escort the former owner to the sidewalk. She can't stay on my property." As Sarah was led away, her heels clicking a hollow, lonely rhythm across the marble she once claimed to own, Wilson turned to the remaining guests. The power had shifted completely. The man in the suit was no longer a trespasser. He was the master of the empire. If you believe that character is the only true inheritance, like this video and share it. Tell us in the comments. Would you have let her keep the family empire? Subscribe now for more stories of unstoppable dignity.